Welcome to Heard County Elementary Schools Test Examiner Training for 2021. This training will go over preparation for testing, test security, and requirements for test examiners and proctors of the Georgia Milestones Assessment. This training satisfies Georgia DOE and Heard County School System's examiner training session requirements and should be signed off upon completion of viewing. If you have any questions, please see Ms. Bonner at your earliest convenience. Let's get started with what you need to do before testing. Start gathering everything you need for testing. You should study the test administration manual. You'll need to know when tests are scheduled for our school and how long test times are for our administration. Those schedules are listed in this presentation. Additionally, they'll be available to you electronically through our Google platform. Make sure you have the proper equipment for your students, including students with accommodations. You should have information on who to contact in case issues arise during testing. All test examiners should read the appropriate sections of the test administration manual prior to testing. A link to the TAM has been provided in this presentation. Each testing setup and classroom is unique, so make sure to preview your test environment before test day. Test administrators should consider how desks, tables, or computers are distributed, as well as the proximity of students to each other. Physical barriers help limit distractions and discourage cheating. Make sure all instructional materials are covered by Friday, April 30th at 4:45 p.m. so that administrators can confirm a secure testing location. If there is a question about whether materials should be covered, it is a best practice to always cover them. Make sure that the Insight icon is functioning on all of your Chromebook devices by having students test to see if the icon for Insight will open. Those will be available starting Monday, May 3rd. This year, we'll be using GeorgiaExperienceOnline.com for our practice tests. I will send an additional video out on how to access this site and set it up for our students with accommodations for our practice test sessions on Wednesday. This will orient students on how to use the online tools, as well as administer practice test questions for them to practice. There will be test monitors in the halls to manage any students or questions that may arise during the testing period. During the testing period, please make sure that there is a do not disturb and a no electronic devices sign for your door. Also, please develop a plan for gathering cell phones, Apple and Android watches, or any other electronic device so that students do not use them or have access to them during testing. Look through the test administration manual to ensure that you have all materials, including scratch paper, student rosters. Those will not be printed this year. They will be available via Google. Test tickets, which will be printed, a clock for students to see, and pencils. Test examiners should be aware of all students with accommodations and how to help them during testing. Read alouds, or text-to-speech, TTS, will be printed on your test tickets. However, all other accommodations are the responsibility of the test administrator. This is a list of all ELA items that the students could see during their testing time. This is a list of math items that the students could see during their testing. And finally, this is a list of any science item types that our fifth graders could see during testing. Moving on to our testing schedule for the spring of 2021 end of grades assessments. As you can see, we will be giving our practice test this Wednesday, April 28th. May 4th, 5th, and 6th, we'll be administering each of our ELA sections on separate days. This will allow us to do makeup tests in the afternoon for any students that are late arriving to school, as well as utilizing Friday, May 7th for any makeup tests as needed. May 11th and 12th, we'll begin our math sections 1 and 2, each on separate days, with makeups in the afternoon as needed. And then May 13th, we'll have our science sections 1 and 2, both on the same day, with a break in between and a snack provided by our cafeteria. Makeups will be during that afternoon session and on the 14th if needed. Based on an analysis of prior year's testing, times have been adjusted for the new test design. They have determined, Georgia DOE has determined the typical amount of time in which most students should complete the testing. If needed, however, students are allowed to use the maximum time shown here in this table. However, there is no minimum time for testing this year. If all students have submitted the test and the examiner feels like they've completed it with fidelity, then the examiner can complete that test session. I'd like for us to be in our testing locations by 8 o'clock each morning or 8:05 at the latest. That way we may begin the secure testing session by 8:10 or 8:15 at the latest each morning. That will ensure all testing has been completed prior to lunches starting. Remember, if all students have completed the testing session, there is no minimum time. Please ensure students are not just marking answers quickly, however, and submitting without you reviewing their summary page to ensure all questions have at least been attempted. This testing starting and ending times, these are just approximations to help with the planning of the day. Please note at the beginning of each test session, there will be things that you'll need to read aloud and say prior to those pages that are marked here. This chart just shows the exact page each test section begins and ends in your test administration manual. Additionally, please note our exploratory schedule during our testing window. On testing days, our exploratory teachers will be helping proctor our exams. Therefore, there will be no morning exploratory classes. Classes will resume normally on a rotating basis each day starting at noon. Please see above, classes that are not listed will not have exploratory classes on those dates. Therefore, you need to plan accordingly. For example, on May 4th, our only grade levels that will go to exploratory are 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. Please note those times. On May 5th, however, the rotation will change, which will allow our kindergartners, first graders, and second graders to see exploratory on those days. However, our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade classes will not have exploratory those dates. Other important information to consider. Are students ready? Students should be comfortable with the format of the Georgia Milestones Assessment as well as Insight program and all available tools. Our school-wide practice session with students using www.georgiaexperienceonline.com will be this Wednesday on April 28th to allow them to use those program tools and to see what the test questions are like. Teachers, students, and parents can experience the format of the test and the Insight program anywhere, anytime through the Experience Online Testing Georgia platform. Please examine each test ticket for the correct name, content area, GTID, school, test section, test session, and accommodations. Test scores will be invalidated if a student takes the wrong test or logs in with the incorrect test ticket. Accommodations show on both the ticket and the student roster. Test examiners should have a list of students and their accommodations. Some accommodations do not require Insight to make a change and will not show on the accommodation listed on the ticket or roster. For example, additional time will not show on the ticket. The examiner is required to monitor the additional time as well as any other accommodations that the students may receive normally throughout the school year as prescribed by his or her IEP or 504. If you have any questions regarding accommodations, please contact Ms. Bonner before logging in to see if a student needs to receive one of the accommodations listed here that isn't on their test ticket or roster. The format of the test includes different test item types, how they will be displayed, and how students interact with the items. Experience Online Testing Georgia allows students to use the universal testing tools. Students should know how to use, cut, copy, paste, undo, and redo when responding to constructed response items. Universal tools are available to students participating in the Georgia Assessment Program to address their individual accessibility needs as they access instructional or assessment content. These supports are either embedded in the online test or provided by a test administrator at the local level during testing, i.e. scratch paper. Beginning this school year, the line reader mask tool, also simply referred to as masking, is included in a list of embedded universal tools and will no longer be considered an accommodation. Therefore, it is now available to all students for their use during testing. To access the masking tool, click the Options button and select Add Mask. Like the notepad, students can hide and show the mask as needed while testing. Remember, students and teachers may review and practice using these tools and item types in Experience Online Testing Georgia. Students who need larger print or other test content can use the magnifier tool that's available for all students. The Georgia Milestones Assessment scales to the size of the monitor, therefore students who need the test to show larger can be given a larger monitor. For students with the read aloud, also called text-to-speech accommodation, the recorded voice will read the text. Students can pause or stop the read aloud at any point. Students can also choose start points to read for all parts of the text. Make sure that the students who are allowed the read aloud accommodation know how to manipulate the online audio tool. Accommodations are presented online, including contrasting colors, which show different color and text background. Let's get started with what the test examiner needs to do during the day of testing. Before students start testing, the test examiner should click on the Insight application and choose the correct assessment for the student. Check test tickets to verify accommodations and student information, including their GTID number. Students will then use their test tickets to log into the system. What happens if a student gets sick? We need to be prepared for student illness. If a student is sick prior to testing or between sections, we do have plans for afternoon and makeup sessions. However, if a student gets sick in the middle of a section, please work with Ms. Bonner to determine if scores can be reported or if they will need to be invalidated. Sometimes network issues can interrupt testing. If the testing device loses connectivity, Insight will continue to reconnect. If you see this message, contact your hall monitor immediately so they can get in touch with administrators and our technology support person for the day. The Insight system has a heartbeat that submits responses every 45 seconds, as well as every time a student moves between test items. These safeguards are put in place to minimize any loss of content when there's a network interruption. Make sure to familiarize yourself with all of the test examiner script found in the test administration manual, as well as any other documents that you will need to distribute to students the day of testing. Many test irregularities can be avoided if the test examiner and proctor are actively monitoring the testing room. Errors during test administration can also be avoided by careful planning and following the testing script. Immediately report any irregularities to Ms. Bonner. Here are some things that can cause testing irregularities: student illnesses, student leaving a test setting unaccompanied by an adult, students who don't receive their accommodations or receive the incorrect accommodations, students accessing electronic devices during testing, adults providing inappropriate assistance, or lost test tickets. The online testing environment can reduce sharing of testing answers since students work through the test at their own individual pace. However, if not monitored correctly, students can review content on other computers. The test examiner and proctor should always be careful and conscious of student behavior and ensure students are demonstrating their knowledge of test content. Test examiners should intervene to stop cheating before it results in a test invalidation. If you're unsure about cheating, allow testing to continue and report it to the school test coordinator, Ms. Bonner. If cheating is confirmed, please note test scores will be invalidated. Test examiners and proctors should be actively monitoring during the entire testing time by walking around the room, assisting students with technology questions if they arise, and checking on students who are looking to gain information from any other students. Test examiners and proctors should use testing time for monitoring and not doing other work. Test examiners and proctors should never point to test answers. They should not share content knowledge or give students any advantage during testing time. The test administrator or proctor may look at the test to see whether responses are entered and may not examine or comment on individual responses. Proctors are there to ensure testing security and to assist the examiner in supervision of students in the testing environment. Additionally, proctors should be able to assist the examiner in answering any questions that may arise during the testing session. However, proctors should never give answers to any questions regarding the content of the test. Proctors should remain in the testing session for the entire duration of testing, observe and report things as needed. Additionally, proctors are to ensure the examiner is maintaining a strict test security during testing and with any materials gathered or used during the testing session. Additionally, they will help gather those test materials and secure them with the testing coordinator at the end of testing. Ensuring the confidentiality of test content is critical to ensure the security of the test administration. Failure to maintain the security of testing materials and content can lead to the invalidation of testing and/or referral to the Professional Standards Committee. It could result in a loss of your teaching certificate and/or lead to termination of employment. Cell phones, Apple or Android watches are not allowed in the test environment and should be collected before the test. If the student has a cell phone during testing or an Android watch or Apple Watch, and it is determined that they access that device during the test, it could invalidate the test. If you aren't sure if the student has accessed the device, please notify Ms. Bonner so she can investigate, but allow the student to complete their testing. If it's confirmed that the student has used the device to access, retain, or share information about the test, make sure to collect the device and stop testing the student. If the phone or Android or Apple Watch rings, but nobody accesses the device, then the student may be able to continue testing. As a good practice before submitting the tests, teachers can review the end page or summary to ensure that students did not leave anything blank or have any questions that have been unanswered. If a teacher feels that students have just marked answers, then they shouldn't let them submit their test, but rather ask the student to review their work and then raise their hand once the test has been reviewed a second time. Once it has been reviewed a second time, students must exit the test properly in order for the test to be submitted for scoring. When students are done with the test, they should click the Review and Test button, raise their hand for the teacher to check, review their test items, and then click the End Test and Submit. The test will not be submitted for scoring until the Submit button has been hit. Now that testing is over, what do you need to do? Remember that test tickets and scratch paper, as well as testing rosters, are all secure test materials. Follow protocol to ensure that all materials have been returned. Please make sure that all testing tickets are returned in alphabetical order to ensure that Ms. Bonner can verify the return of all materials very quickly. If you have questions, please see Ms. Bonner. If you don't have any questions, your next steps are to click on the link below. Teachers, click on the Teacher Training Sign Off, and any proctors, please click on the Proctor Training Sign Off. That will lead you to a different site in which you can sign that you have completed the training electronically. Thank you for your time.